But vampires is different, maybe the worst kind. The soul gets stuck in the body. Can't rejoin the ancestors.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're finally going to take a look at the movie, Sinners. I had no idea what to expect going into this movie, and honestly, it exceeded all my expectations. This, along with the 2024 Nosferatu, are two of the best vampire movies I've seen in years. In this video, I'm going to explain what happens in Sinners, so spoiler alert. But we're also going to be focusing on the vampires and finding out everything we can about them. How old could these vampires be? What do they want with Sammy, and more. Without further ado, let's get into Sinners. The movie begins with the character Annie narrating, giving us some important information for the story. There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past and the future. In ancient Ireland, they were called Fili. In Choctaw land, they called them firekeepers. And in West Africa, they're called griots. This gift can bring healing to their communities, but it also attracts evil. This information will be very important later. We start the story October 16th, 1932 in Clarksdale, Mississippi. We see a boy pulling up to a small church. His clothes are tattered and he has blood all over him. He's also holding the broken neck of a guitar. We hear the song This Little Light of Mine coming from inside the church, and he limps inside. The preacher is his father, and he says his boy Sammy has fallen to sin. As his father is speaking, Sam is having horrific flashbacks to something. Then we see he has massive scratch marks on the side of his face. His father tells him to put the guitar down, then the screen goes black. The opening scene foreshadows the events to come, but now we rewind one day before. We're going to see how Sam ended up covered in blood with only the neck of his guitar left. Sam is in the field picking cotton, and a woman asks him where he's playing guitar tonight, but he politely brushes her off, not wanting to answer. He finishes his work for the day and goes home, quickly seeing his mother, then going inside and reaching under his bed looking for something, but it's not there. Sam makes his way to the same church that we already seen with his father inside. Sam is looking for his guitar, and his father has taken it and put it in the church. He wants Sam to practice and do the sermon with him tomorrow. Sam shows that he knows the Bible very well, closing it halfway through and saying the rest from memory. But then he says he needs his guitar and he needs to go. His father clearly doesn't approve of him playing guitar in town at the local bars for what he calls drunkards and philanderers. He sees it as a bad influence on Sam. His father warns him, if you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's gonna follow you home. Sam goes outside and there's two well-dressed men in a car waiting for him. This is Smoke and Stack. They're related to Sam and just recently returned from Chicago a whole lot richer. They buy a building from a local man and they plan to open up a juke joint. Basically a bar that has live music, drinking, dancing, and gambling. It's an old sawmill and they buy it from a man who they think is a Klan member. They warn him if they see him or any of his Klan buddies on their property, they'll shoot them. But the man assures them the Klan doesn't exist anymore. Maybe they have nothing to worry about then. One of the twins asks if the floors were recently cleaned and what was on them, but the man doesn't answer. Okay, that's a little weird. We learn throughout the movie that Stack and Smoke are not their real names. Stack's real name is Elias and Smoke's real name is Elijah. After buying the sawmill, the twins pick up their cousin Sammy from the church and bring him into town. They need to pick up all the supplies if they're going to open their place tonight. A cook, food, staff, and of course, live music. They have brought a bunch of Irish beer and Italian wine back from Chicago, so they already have the liquor covered. The twins split up so they can get more done. First, Smoke goes into town to get the food and signs made up at the local general store, owned by an old friend Bo Chow and his wife Grace. Smoke asks a girl if she's ever heard of the Smokestack twins, and she says, of course, letting us know these two are pretty famous around here. Or maybe more accurately, infamous. He introduces himself as Smoke, and the girl looks scared, but he assures her she isn't in trouble, and he pays her very well to watch his truck for him. While negotiating with Bo, some guys try to rob his truck and they immediately recognize Smoke and apologize for robbing his truck. He shoots one of them in the backside and the other in the leg. After all, he can't let anyone walk away saying they almost robbed the Smokestack twins, not without a limp to show for it. In case you haven't noticed by now, both Smoke and Stack are played by Michael B. Jordan, who does an amazing job. This movie has an absolutely stacked cast of actors. Stack is driving with Sammy and wants to hear him play the guitar. It's probably been a while since Stack heard him play, and he's blown away. The look on his face says everything. Then he yells out in joy and says, they're gonna make some money. They go to the train station and meet a man playing harmonica. This is Delta Slim. Sammy already knows who he is, so he must also be quite known in the area. Stack wants to hire him to perform at the juke joint tonight, and he's willing to pay $20 for the night, which back in 1932 is a lot. However, Slim declines because he's been playing at the local joint called Messengers for a decade, and that place will always be here. He'd rather just stay where he is. He holds pretty steady, until Stack pulls out a fresh Irish beer from Chicago. Compared to the cheap corn liquor he usually drinks, it must taste like heaven, because he agrees after trying it. A crowd forms around Slim and Sammy while they play, and Stack informs the crowd that they'll be performing at the new juke joint tonight. Sammy also gets the hots for a married woman who just so happens to sing sometimes. Sammy invites her to the opening tonight, and she says she might go. Before they can leave, Stack also runs into his old girlfriend Mary that he left behind when he went to Chicago. Around this time, it would have been very strange to see an interracial couple, but these two clearly have a long history together. So now they have the food, signs, and the live entertainment for tonight. The last thing Smoke does is pick up Cornbread, a very big guy they've known since childhood, and he's going to be security/doorman. Smoke takes a detour out to a house in the middle of nowhere, and walks up to what looks like a grave on the ground. He places some flowers down and says, "Papa's here." This must be his son or daughter that died. He goes inside and talks to his ex-girlfriend Annie. Similar to Stack, he also left his girlfriend to go to Chicago. Although they split, Smoke and Annie still seem to be very much in love. She also practices magic and claims the only reason he survived in Chicago doing all that crazy stuff is because of her. She's been using her magic to protect him. He reveals that he still wears the mojo bag that she made for him. They talk for a bit and wind up doing a little more than talking, if you know what I mean. A mojo bag is used in the African American folk magic tradition called hoodoo. It's a personal charm that can be worn to provide money, luck, love, protection, and more. We now cut away to a man running toward a house in the middle of nowhere, and his skin looks like it's burning and smoking. He reaches the house yelling for help, and a husband and wife answer the door with guns drawn. We also see in the house some Klan robes, which means when this guy said the Klan didn't exist anymore, he was clearly lying. The man at the door is speaking fast and says, "I thought I could trust them, but they tried to kill me." The couple asks, "Who?" and he replies, "Choctaw Indians." Now this movie is a period piece like Django Unchained, so I have to change the words a little bit. Anyway, the husband says, "Are you sure it wasn't a fair-skinned black man? There are no Indians around here for miles." The man collapses crying and says, "They took my wife." "I'm a coward, ain't I?" He states they tried to rob him, but they didn't get it all. They can have the rest. He then hands them some gold coins and says, "Just don't let them hurt me anymore," and the couple lowers their guns. I guess they don't question why he looks burnt because they assume he was tortured. We don't actually see if they let him inside, but not too long after, a group of Choctaw arrive. One of the men knocks on the door and the wife answers with the rifle drawn. The Choctaw man says, "Evening, ma'am. We're in pursuit of someone very dangerous. He might have come onto your property. Have you seen anyone recently?" The woman coldly says no and calls for her husband, but he isn't coming. The Choctaw man asks, "Is he in there?" "He's not what he seems. God forbid you let him into your home. And if so, we need to act now." Just then, one of the other Choctaw men points out that they need to go before dark, and we see the sun is going down, so they decide to leave. He wishes the woman well and says, "May God watch over you." The wife goes back inside and looks for her husband, only to find him dead and the man they let in their home covered in blood.
Oh, he's just resting.
His fingers are now elongated with sharp nails and his eyes glow red. Also, all the burns that were on his skin are gone and he looks healthy as ever. He assures the woman her husband is just resting and not to worry. A moment later, he stands up with his eyes now glowing and also a set of fangs. There's a lot to unpack with this mysterious guy. First of all, it's pretty obvious he's a vampire. The Choctaw must be aware of their existence and were hunting him for some reason. The fact that the husband said there's no Indians around here for miles also means they chased him a considerable distance. Maybe he killed some of their people. This vampire was extremely cunning and tricked the people to let him in, so we also know he's smart. These vampires can even hide their true appearance and look like a normal human when it suits them. In their true form, their fingers are long like Nosferatu. They have large fangs and glowing eyes. Some vampires' eyes glow red, while others glow yellow, which we'll see later. We also now know these vampires can turn someone with a bite, and it only takes a matter of minutes for someone to change. Now we go back to the juke joint where the twins are getting the place ready for the opening and hooking up the power. Not too long after, people start to arrive, including Pearline. the singing girl from the train station that Sammy has the hots for, that said she was married. Mary arrives as well, and at first, Cornbread doesn't let her inside because, well, she'd be the only white person there. But then when Cornbread remembers who she is, his mood changes completely and he welcomes her in. We eventually learn that Mary's mother delivered the twins when they were born and raised them like her own. So Mary grew up with the Smokestack twins, which explains why she knows them and all their friends so well. She's upset because her mother recently passed and she didn't hear anything from Stack, and she still wants to be with him. He claims he does still love her, but his life is too dangerous and he wants to keep her safe, and that will never be with him. Delta Slim is playing piano, then he welcomes Sammy onto the stage. He introduces himself and begins to play a song he wrote for his father. During the performance, it cuts to Delta Slim telling Sammy, "This wasn't forced on us like that religion. We brought this from home. It's magic what we can do. It's sacred. It's big." As Sammy continues to play, we see new people appearing around the dance floor. The same narration from the beginning by Annie plays again. There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past and the future. Sammy must be one of these rare people Annie spoke of. She said in ancient Ireland they were called Fili, in Choctaw land they call them firekeepers, and in West Africa they are called griots. Through his music, Sammy is able to conjure spirits and even heal his people. The building itself seems to disappear around him. But remember, Annie also said that it can attract evil. And just outside, we see the vampire and the husband and wife he turned staring at the juke joint. He seems to be attracted to Sammy's music. Inside the juke joint, Sammy gets lucky after showing off his guitar and singing skills. That's when the vampires approach the building. Cornbread tells the twins there's 3 white people outside, which makes them come running. Outside, the man finally introduces himself as Remick, and he's Irish. His friends are Joan and Bert, which we met earlier. Now they seem to be in a great mood and happy to follow Remick around. When Sammy comes to the door, Remick immediately knows that's the voice he heard singing, and they all compliment him. The 3 of them want to come inside, drink and play some music, but the twins aren't so sure. The strangers claim to be from North Carolina and swear they're not part of the clan. They play a little song for them, and even one of the twins admits they're not bad. You might be wondering, did these vampires practice this for hours just for a chance to get in the building? Well, no, and there's a really good explanation why they can all sing this song together. Their song is interrupted by the twins saying this is a juke joint, blues music. They send the group on their way and go back inside. Stack says if they get in any trouble, remember they have the trunk, aka a trunk full of guns. The twins are very adept at combat and handle a gun like a pro. That's because they served in World War I. I don't think it's ever outright stated, there's just little hints throughout the movie, like how good they are with a pistol, and Annie says Smoke went to war. Then later, one of them says he's a soldier, and one of the twins says they were in the German trenches. So I feel like that's evidence enough. The twins have a discussion with Mary and Sammy. They don't want to let those strangers in here, but unfortunately, they're not making enough money, and they did say they had money to spend. Mary decides she will go out and talk to them and see if they're good people. She also puts together that while the twins were in Chicago working for Capone, they ripped off both mafias. That's where they got the Irish beer and the Italian wine, and of course the money to buy the sawmill. So basically no going back to Chicago for them, and they'll be lucky if someone doesn't come looking for them. So they were World War I veterans that went on to work for Capone. Anyway, Mary goes outside and the 3 are singing together. Mary sits down and wants to know if they're good people. They assure her they are, and they have lots of money to spend. They show Mary some coins, and they're solid gold. Not too long ago, a guy was trying to buy liquor with wooden coins, so gold is a big upgrade. These coins look very interesting, and Mary is intrigued by them. When she asks where they're from, Remick says they're from a different place and a different time. That suggests these coins are quite old. Since he's Irish, I looked up Celtic gold coins, and they do look similar. From what I could find, these coins were made from the late 4th century BC to sometime in 1st century AD. That means if these are Celtic coins, Remick could be anywhere from 1900 to 2400 years old. I couldn't 100% confirm these are Celtic coins, but the evidence is pretty good. After giving Mary the money, Remick says that's not going to fix your problems. He somehow knows that Mary is suffering a heartbreak. It could have been just a good guess, but I think these vampires can read thoughts, or possibly emotions. Mary talks to them for a while, but Remick starts to get a little creepy, saying she needs to be saved. He starts to drool as if he can barely hold himself back and his eyes start to glow. Mary realizes something is off and pulls out her pistol and says she's going inside and they better leave. Before she can make it to the door, Remick flies up into the air like he's weightless. So these vampires can fly, or at least jump really high. We don't get to see what happens to Mary because the scene cuts to black and we go back inside to Pearline singing on stage. A few moments later, Mary reappears at the door and asks Cornbread to let her inside, almost as if she had to wait for an invitation. She then walks through the juke joint with a new sense of confidence and seductiveness. She's also much more bold and seduces Smoke. She gives them the gold coins and the two go back into the room together and we see a bite on Mary's shoulder. So Remick got her. At the same time, Cornbread goes for a bathroom break and tells Slim to watch the door. While outside, Cornbread starts to hear strange noises and voices calling him from the woods.
Village of blood. Hey,
Cornbread doesn't return from going to the bathroom, and Smoke goes looking for his brother and finds Mary feeding on his neck with blood everywhere. She says it's not what it looks like, but Smoke pulls out his pistols and shoots Mary about a dozen times. However, it only puts her down for a few seconds. She almost immediately wakes up, laughing, which is not a good sign for them. Mary stands up and says, "We're gonna kill every last one of y'all." Then she runs out of the building. Delta Slim tells everybody the party is over and they need to leave immediately. Smoke is distraught over losing his twin brother and won't let his body go. Annie knows there's something weird going on though. She noticed that Mary said, "We are gonna kill all of you," and she thinks they should move Stack's body outside for now, but Smoke refuses. Annie tries to talk some sense into him, saying, "You shot her and she kept running like nothing happened." This is a haint we're dealing with, Smoke, or worse. For reference, a haint is an evil spirit. Their name comes from the term haunt. This spirit comes from African culture, and these spirits are believed to be very dangerous, capable of harming and even killing people. These spirits are usually created when someone dies a violent death or has unresolved problems, similar to some vampire myths. They are usually associated with evil, and many believe these spirits to be more active at night, also like a vampire. Annie reiterates they need to keep the living inside and the dead out, but Smoke still refuses to let his brother go. He asks Annie if she has any magic to bring his brother back, a mojo bag for him, but she can't. The next person to leave the building is Bo Chow. His wife wants to go home to see their daughter, so he goes outside to start the car. And that's the last we see him. Finally, Cornbread returns after going pee an hour ago. He's standing at the door and wants to be invited inside, but everyone wants to know where he was. He claims he was just using the bathroom, but he keeps asking to be let inside. Once again, Annie realizes something isn't right. Why won't he just step inside? Why do we need to invite him? Annie says to Cornbread, "Tell them why you can't come inside." "It's because you're dead." He's a haint. He insists that he's not and wants to be paid for the night if he can't come back in. Smoke grabs some money and cautiously hands it to Cornbread. Of course, as soon as he puts his hand outside the building, he grabs him and tries to bite his arm. Luckily, Smoke is fast with his pistol and shoots Cornbread in the face, allowing him to get away. Cornbread isn't dead though. Other than him looking a little messed up now, he seems to be absolutely fine. Back in the juke joint, they hear knocking on the back room where Stack's body was. Yeah, he's not so dead anymore. Thankfully, they locked the door on the room, so they have him trapped. Annie reminds Smoke that that's not his brother anymore, and Stack gets increasingly angry being trapped in the room. He tries to trick Smoke to get him to open the door, and it kinda works. Smoke asks for the key, but before he can even open the door, Stack smashes through it, landing on Sammy. Annie thinks fast and throws a jar of pickled garlic on Stack, and it burns him like acid as he runs out of the building. So far, we know these vampires are weak to sunlight and garlic. Plus, we know they need to be invited inside, so as long as they stay in the building, they're safe. It's not clear yet if they have any weakness to silver or holy objects like Bibles and crosses. After Stack is burned by the garlic, Annie finally realizes what they're dealing with. These aren't haints. These are vampires. Since she knows what these are now, she tells everyone they just have to make it until sunrise and they'll be okay. She says they need garlic, wood, silver, and holy water. So I guess that might confirm that silver and holy water does work. Sammy wants to know, how could it sound like Stack and move like Stack if it's not him? Annie says, "I've only ever heard stories. I ain't never come across them myself. How haints work? They switch places with the soul of a man. But vampires is different. Maybe the worst kind. The soul gets stuck in the body, can't rejoin the ancestors. Cursed to live here, with all this hate. Can't even feel the warmth of a sunrise. Smoke wonders if he kills the one who turned his brother, can he save him? But Annie says no, that won't work. These vampires have a connection, but they will live on if one of them is killed. So you can't kill the sire to save someone like you can in some other vampire stories. Maybe most notably Bram Stoker's Dracula. Also in the movie Fright Night, someone is saved by killing the master vampire before the night is over. Annie says the best thing they can do is set their spirit free by killing them. Sunlight or a wooden stake to the heart. Smoke has protected his brother all over the world, and he wonders why tonight. That's when Sammy says it's his fault. His father warned him that his music would bring in the devil. I'm not sure if Delta Slim is joking, but he says he's had a vampire try to kill him once, and that the devil has come for him many times. And if he comes knocking tonight, he's gonna have to go through old Delta Slim before he gets to Sammy. Annie also tells Smoke that if she gets turned, please kill her. Suddenly, Grace starts screaming and they find a man that looks like he's been bitten and there's blood all over the floor. They don't know when he was attacked, but they grab his body and throw him outside anyway. When they go outside, Sammy hears something in the distance. They're playing music. There's a bunch of people running into the field and Remick is there in the middle singing an Irish folk song with blood all over his face. There's a whole crowd around him, meaning he's turned a lot of people tonight. Probably everyone that left the Juke earlier and more. Once again, all the vampires somehow know this folk song and they sing along. My guess is Remick is a very old vampire, which is why he's able to manipulate people so well and control all these vampires. At the Juke, they still don't know how that body wound up inside, so they do a test. Everyone has to eat a piece of garlic to prove they haven't been turned. Everyone does well, except Delta Slim. Turns out he just drank too much.
I drank too much. That goddamn beer from Chicago.
So none of them were turned. That's when Annie says, "Are you sure that was blood?" They check it, and it's wine. The guy got wasted, passed out, and they thought he was killed because of the red wine. They realize their mistake and try to run out to get him, but it's too late. Cornbread kills him before they can reach him. Bo Chow has also returned now, trying to get his wife Grace to come outside, but the others stop her. Remick arrives and says he is their way out of this. They can build together. Forever. Hinting that these vampires are indeed immortal. Then Remick says, you should listen to your husband. Or, listen to me, because I know everything he knows. He threatens to go get their little girl that's living at the general store if they don't let him inside. Then he begins speaking Taishanese to Grace. So when someone is turned into a vampire, their knowledge is shared with the other vampires like a hive mind. Or at least it's shared with Remick. He says he knows everything Bo does now, including how to speak their native language. This explains how earlier they all knew how to play that song together even though they just met. It's because only one of them has to know it. This vampire species functions like a hive mind similar to the strain. They're all interconnected. Remick reveals that Sammy is the reason that he came. He could sense him.
Sammy, you're the one I came for.
He says, I want to see my people again, and I'm trapped here. But your gifts can bring them to me. He even offers to let the rest of them live if they give up Sammy. Sammy then tries to step forward to sacrifice himself for the others, but they don't let him. Okay, now we know why Remick wants Sammy. Because he's so old, possibly over 2,000, all of his people are dead, and he wants to see them again. Through Sammy's ability to conjure spirits from the past and future, Remick would be able to see his people. It's possible he's been looking for someone with this ability for a long time. Maybe that's why he went to the Choctaw but was chased away. Remick taunts Smoke, saying he can't save Sammy because he couldn't even save his own brother. He admires what they built here, but it was built on a lie. Remember the guy they bought the building from? His name was Hogwood, and he said the clan doesn't exist anymore. Well, Remick informs him that he's actually the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, and that's his nephew, and he points to Bert and Joan that he turned earlier. If you guys remember, we seen a clan robe in that guy's house, so that explains that. Since Remick turned the nephew of the Grand Dragon, Remick knows everything he knows, including Hogwood's plan. They sold this building to them on purpose, and planned on killing them all. Let them all gather in one place and then gun them down. Remember earlier when they were buying the place, one of the twins noticed the floor was cleaned and he asked what was on it, and Hogwood didn't answer. Well, my bet is that they have done this before, and the floor was covered in blood from the last group of people they killed. Remick says after they're done here, they're gonna go find that Grand Dragon and kill him as well. Or turn him most likely.
This is the way. And I ain't doing this shit without you.
Stack is now a vampire and does his best to convince his brother to join them. It almost works, but they close the door and go back inside. Grace is freaking out because they threatened her daughter, but they calm her down for now. After gathering all the weapons, Grace is being driven crazy by all the vampires singing together outside. She grabs a stake and they have to try to stop her from running outside. In her frantic state, she invites all the vampires in. The group of survivors now has no choice but to ready themselves for a fight, and Remick opens the front doors. Grace throws a Molotov at him, but he swats it out of the way, setting fire to the sawmill. Grace grabs one of the vampires, pushing him into the flames and then not letting go, setting herself on fire as well. So she's dead. The remaining side characters are taken out pretty much immediately, and only Smoke, Sammy, Annie, Pearline, and Delta Slim are left. Everyone is struggling to hold their own, and Smoke is going full Rambo mode, once again showing his military training. Annie is also going in with a wooden stake, and she splashes garlic water on Remick's face, burning him. At the same moment, all the other vampires grab their face and scream in pain. Annie realizes since Remick is the sire, all these vampires can feel his pain. Just then, Annie is grabbed by Stack of all people and bitten. Smoke can't help because at the same time, he is being held down by Remick. Pearline shoots Remick and Stack, but it's too late. Annie has been bitten, and Smoke does what she asked him to do. He takes the wooden stake and rams it through her heart so her spirit doesn't get trapped in her body. Something that I found interesting was when Smoke kills Annie, Mary starts screaming for Annie and crying after she's staked. So there is some small amount of them left in there after they're turned. The vampires momentarily retreat and Pearline, Smoke, and Sammy go upstairs to escape out the back of the building. Delta Slim stays behind like the hero he is and sacrifices himself so they can get away. When they're trying to leave, they are ambushed by Remick and Stack. Slim is brutally eaten alive downstairs and Pearline is bitten by Remick. Smoke and Pearline tell Sammy to go, make it to sunrise. With his guitar still in hand, Sammy jumps out of the sawmill and starts running, but Remick flies down behind him and hits him in the face, causing Sammy to fall in the water. This is one of the flashbacks we see from the beginning of the film when Sammy was standing in the church. In the sawmill, Smoke is having a final showdown with his brother while Remick tries to finish off Sammy. Sammy begins to pray, and Remick begins to pray with him, and all the other vampires as well. A very eerie moment.
Our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses.
After the prayer, Remick says, "Long ago, the men who stole my father's land forced these words upon us. I hated those men, but still, the words bring me comfort. Those men lied to themselves and lied to us. They told stories of a god above and a devil below, and lies of a dominion of man over beast and earth." Each time Remick is talking, he's putting Sammy's head under the water almost like a baptism. And if I'm following Remick right, and he lived in Ireland as a child, and Christianity came to Ireland sometime before the 5th century, then he would indeed be at least 1400 to 1500 years old at minimum. Inside, Stack is about to bite Smoke, but he can't. It's like there's something supernatural stopping him. If I had to guess, I would say it's the mojo bag that Annie made for him that's protecting him. Finally, Smoke gets the upper hand and pins down his brother with the wooden stake over his heart. And once again, we are shown the vampires do have a piece of their humanity left inside. They act very different, but as Annie stated, it is still their soul trapped in their body, not the spirit of a demon or something like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. When Smoke is about to kill his brother, he says, "I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe."
Don't be sorry. You always did.
While Remick is talking, Sammy hits him in the head with his guitar, badly wounding him. This causes all the other vampires to retch in pain and grab for their face. Remick's wound is smoking, making me believe part of the guitar may have had silver in it, which is why it hurt him so much. The guitar damaged his face and he kinda looks like Baraka from Mortal Kombat now. He's finally going to bite Sammy, and just in time, Smoke stabs Remick through the heart with a wooden stake. When Remick is stabbed, all the other vampires are basically paralyzed with pain, and it just so happens the sun is about to come up. So while they're stuck in this state of pain and confusion, they are burned by the sun and go up in flames. Some try to run, but they don't make it far. Unlike all the other vampires, when Remick dies, he takes a moment to look at the sun and his body erupts in a tornado of flame, showing he was special in some way, possibly due to his age. I highly doubt that he's the first vampire, but I guess it is possible. At the end of it all, the only two people that survived were Smoke and Sammy. They unload the trunk from the truck, and Smoke tells them to bury that guitar. Sammy says he can't because Stack told him it was Charlie Patton's and they won it in a card game. Smoke laughs and says that was their father's guitar.
Said y'all won it off.
Lying son of a bitch.
He tells Sammy to be strong and sends him on his way. He has some business to handle. Sammy drives home, and this is where we seen him at the beginning of the movie, pulling up to his father's church in the twins' car, carrying only the neck of his guitar. Stack is still at the sawmill, and he has some flashbacks of the previous day while trying to roll a cigarette, but he's too shaky. Since he learned what the clan was planning, he has a little surprise for them when they show up. Sure enough, they all arrive in their vehicles, but they're surprised when no one's inside. That's when Smoke ambushes them from the trees, gunning them down with ease. He even uses a grenade. He is hit during the firefight, but he's only got one goal anyway. He finds Hogwood and asks for a cigarette. At first, Hogwood cusses him out, and then gives him the cigarette and offers him money, hoping maybe his life will be spared. Yeah, that didn't happen. While Smoke is having his final moments, he sees Annie beside him, with their son that passed away. He holds his son and looks like he's at peace and accomplished what he wanted to. Back to Sammy in the church, and his father telling him to give up, son, and drop the guitar. But then we see Sammy driving away in a car, holding his guitar. I guess he decided his gift was worth the risk, and went on with his plan of leaving the plantation. We then see a flash forward of Sammy in his old age playing guitar in Chicago, Illinois, October 16th, 1992. We can tell it's him because he's still got the same scar from Remick on his face. After his performance, Sammy is sitting at the bar having a drink. Security says a couple of people paid money to come and see him. Is that okay? And Sammy says it's fine. Right before the people walk in, it's like he can sense something is off, and Stack and Mary walk through the door. Somehow they survived the sun. We know Stack was inside the barn, and Mary must have been somewhere else because we don't actually see her outside. This also confirms that these vampires are immortal, because Stack and Mary don't look like they've aged a day, whereas Sammy is now an old man. Sammy wants to know how they survived, and it turns out that Smoke didn't kill his brother. He just made him promise to leave Sammy alone and let him live his life. Stack offers to turn Sammy so he can live forever, but he says he's seen enough of this place. Stack says he owns all of Sammy's albums, but he's not a huge fan of the electric stuff. He wants to hear some of the real stuff. Sammy obliges and pulls out his old guitar and plays them a song. Afterwards, Stack gives him the money, a hug, and walks away. Sammy interrupts their exit and says, "Maybe once a week I wake up paralyzed, reliving that night. But before the sun went down, I think that was the best night of my life. Was it like that for you?" Stack says, "No doubt about it. Last time I seen my brother. Last time I seen the sun. And just for a few hours, we were free." Stack and Mary then leave the club and leave Sammy to live out the rest of his life. I think that because leaving Sammy alone was the last thing that Stack ever promised to Smoke, that Sammy was in pretty much zero danger, because I don't think there's any way that Stack would go against his brother's last wishes. I can't put my finger on why I like this ending so much, but I do. This movie was absolutely incredible, and there's a lot to unpack with the vampires. We don't really know where the species came from, or exactly how old they are, but judging by Remick, I would say this species is pretty old, at least a few thousand years. These vampires are turned by a bite and transform rather quickly. Their appearance is very similar to a human, but with large fangs, glowing eyes, and older vampires like Remick have elongated fingers and nails. Like I said earlier, some vampires' eyes glow red, while others glow yellow. They do have the ability to appear completely human though, so they're very hard to detect just by looking at them. As for abilities, they have slightly increased strength. It's possible they get stronger with age, because Remick did seem to be the strongest of them. Remick was also very fast and had good reflexes, and could either fly or jump extremely high. He briefly showed the ability to read someone's mind or emotions, knowing exactly what Mary was feeling, and somehow knew Cornbread's name. I guess maybe it's possible he knew Cornbread's name because Mary was already turned at that point, so he would have known everything she knew. These vampires are quite resilient, and gunshots don't seem to harm them at all, just slow them down momentarily. They also heal quite fast and seem to heal even faster when they feed on blood. Similar to the strain, possibly their most deadly ability is their hive mind. This allows them to coordinate their attacks perfectly and always be in sync. As for weaknesses, they are pretty similar to traditional vampires. Burned by sunlight, weak to garlic, silver, and presumably holy objects and holy water. I noticed that Remick was the only vampire that went in the water. Maybe this was running water and only a powerful vampire like Remick could enter. Also, at least one vampire was killed by fire, so that works as well. Although the hive mind is a strength, it can also be a weakness, as we've seen at the end of the film. Since they are all connected to Remick, by killing him, you weaken the entire group, or at least make them momentarily susceptible to attack. Like Annie said, they would have survived without Remick, but since the sun was coming up, they did it at the perfect time. In the end, there's no doubt this vampirism is some kind of supernatural curse, not a virus or biological affliction. So I wonder, where did it come from? I hope you enjoyed my video on Sinners. I love that blues music is depicted as this powerful spiritual force, strong enough to pierce the veil between life and death. This movie really does keep you interested from start to finish, and all the actors knocked it out of the park. If there's anything I missed or overlooked, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if there's any other video games, movies, or TV shows you want me to cover. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for new videos like this every week. As always, an extra big shout out to all my members for supporting the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.